On a warm day in the spring of 2015, a sign was dedicated in honor of the souls who once graced the city of O'Fallon with their smiles and kind hearts. Sage Chapel Cemetery is O'Fallon's oldest African American cemetery. This eternal cemetery was established in 1881. Since its founding, Sage Chapel has been the resting place for some of O'Fallon's prominent African American residents like Missy Edwards, Lucy Hughes White, and Elizabeth Hayden. Throughout decades of O'Fallon growth, Sage Chapel seemed to lose its identity. Most people who drove by the cemetery located on Veterans Memorial Parkway had no idea that it was even there. The only marker to identify Sage Chapel Cemetery was an old sign built by the Hinman and Swinger families quite a few years ago. That marker had fulfilled its purpose and a replacement was necessary.
Jim Frayne and I were talking about the historic preservation, of which I was the liaison to, and the following, and he mentioned Sage Chapel. The following day, my grandson called me and asked if I knew of a project that he could do in O'Fallon, and the next thing is it evolved into a sign for Sage Chapel to commemorate and bring this historic place forward.
After consulting with his grandpa, Jackson Pepper set out to build a new sign for Sage Chapel Cemetery so he could earn his Eagle Scout. Jackson wasn't really sure how the sign would turn out, but he knew that he had to honor those laid to rest in Sage Chapel. In fact, Jackson spent his free time with family and scouts constructing the perfect sign. And once the sign was completed, it was time for installation. The new sign weighed 1,000 pounds and required 600 pounds of concrete to hold the sign in place.
Oh, it took a lot of man hours, a lot of materials. Throughout the whole thing, I think it took about 3 or 4 weekends to do. It took a while to complete, but I think once you take a look at it, it looks great, and I'm glad how it turned out. If this sign is still standing up, which I really hope it is, I'm going to be driving past it, and I'm probably going to get teared up and just remember all the stuff that went into this project.
Finally, the day came for Sage Chapel's new sign dedication. Families whose loved ones are buried in the cemetery were on hand to rejoice in the fact that Sage Chapel Cemetery is no longer a mystery.
It's one of those things that will live throughout years and years and will be remembered always, and I think that's just one of the greatest feelings in the world, pretty much. So I want to thank everybody again for coming out and celebrating today for not only the Eagle Scout project, but for just everybody in the cemetery, everybody who's associated with it, and thank you very much.
For the living relatives of the deceased, it was a day of remembering and reflecting, but also a day of discovery.
I just came just to get information on my family's history. Like, for a while, my Aunt Phyllis, she's been telling me that we've had this cemetery where a lot of my ancestors have been buried in. I've never really had the time to get out here, and I mean, this was my opportunity, so I took advantage of it.
Sage Chapel Cemetery was lost for a time, but now it's recognizable again thanks to the efforts of citizens like Jim Frayne, Phyllis Hayden, Councilman Jim Pepper, and Jackson Pepper. It's now up to future generations of O'Fallon citizens to make sure that we never again forget Sage Chapel Cemetery.